able to go wherever they want to go, they're more likely to accidentally click on something that they shouldn't. And we can't blame users for clicking on a lot of these things because they do make them pretty tricky on purpose. But just an example of what's out there. So if you're not even worried about filtering out your employees, to keep them more productive, or filtering out what they're doing to, you know, reduce the likelihood of some kind of lawsuits or things like that for going to really bad stuff. For the simple fact of being able to keep your computers clean and spyware and virus free, that can also pay for these internet filtering programs pretty quickly. So you can actually manage web browsing at the DNS level. And what DNS is, that's domain names. Our domain name is smartservices.com. Well, on the internet, our smartservices.com is a set of numbers. So a hard way to do it does take a lot of manual work, and it's really, again, kind of like managing spam at the keywords. It's not the most effective way, but it can be done, more of for a very select type of thing. You can actually go into your own network and tell it, www.microsoft.com equals some number that it's not really true. And what that'll do is anytime somebody tries to go to www.microsoft.com, it sends them to a place that doesn't exist, and they get a page can't be displayed. That's a quick and dirty way to just block one or two or three sites. Again, not really effective as far as spending your time trying to block, thousands and thousands of sites. There are some third-party DNS services out there, and what that means is that you can point your network's DNS, instead of at your internet provider, point them to these services. It's not software you have to install usually. It's not some big device you have to buy, and some of them are even free. And these things, when they're doing lookups for internet sites that users want to browse to, will actually just return like their own blocked page based on rules that you set up. One of the better ones out there is called OpenDNS. They're very fast, they're guaranteed to always be up, and they're free. So if you're ever interested to check that out, you can just go to opendns.org, read through their site, some kind of the stats, look at the categories and different features and abilities that they have. And again, they are free. Pretty simple to set up on your network too. It only takes about a half an hour. You can manage web browsing with server software. The server software is usually a little more complicated to set up, and again, I'm going to list some pros and cons because we have dealt with it all. They do have vast amount of configuration options though, which is a great thing. You can break it down to who can do what at what time, based on what computer they're sitting at, based at their login, or just based on what their job function or role is at work. Usually, though, these do require a certain type of a network switch, an intelligent switch, like a Cisco or an HP ProCurve, that have a little bit, the intelligence to be able to look at a couple different ports and read the traffic coming through. Because it's not just software, it actually works with your network switch. These things offer great reporting. You can find whatever your users are doing on 10 different ways. By type of content, just by time, by who's spending the most time, or who's actually just going to the most sites, maybe not spending the most time. Quick web browsers, they can be just as destructive. Web browsing speed is usually unchanged when you have this solution, unless you're putting it on a very old server, obviously. So that's can be a good thing. They're typically expensive, though. A software that we've dealt with and recommended for quite some time called Surf Control was a great solution. It was a software-based solution, and they weren't very expensive. Their big competitor out there, WebSense, bought them a while ago, and now they're only really pushing WebSense, the bigger, the more expensive program. There are some other ones out there that are a lot more cost-effective, though they don't have the level of the features that Surf Control and WebSense do have. You can get external hosted web filtering services just like you can mail services. They're very easy to set up and maintain because you're not really installing any software. It's already installed. You're just registering for a service and then usually pointing your web browsers or your DNS to this place. They do typically have limited reporting from the ones that we've seen. They're constantly improving, yes, but the reporting's not as good as the software solutions. Definitely a lower upfront cost, because these are typically subscription-based services, so it's a big pro. On the downside, though, typically you're going to see some delays in your web browsing speed because now instead of when somebody's trying to go to Microsoft.com and just looking to their local server and then going out to the internet, you have to go out to the internet first to find where this is and make sure it's a good website. Then your computer's told okay, and then it actually goes out. So it does cause some lag in there. Some agencies have been able to live with that, and some others haven't. We actually haven't been and aren't using this anymore. Very fast ROI, though. Again, if you do have good success with the speed, that's always going to be the question. Hardware appliances, these are very common. So with the right device, they have very simple setup. Again, like software, vast amounts of configuration options. Typically, the same options that the software has. Different categories, different times, based on people. You can let somebody browse for only an hour a day, you name it. Web browsing speed is usually unchanged with these devices because they've got their own processors. Great reporting, usually the same level of reporting that the servers have. And again, a very fast ROI because you don't ever have to worry about the slowdown with these solutions. So again, just a quick recap on what you can do with these web filter solutions. The hosted services over the time of a year will probably cost about the same as a device, a couple $1,000s. A little more than that if you've obviously got more users or a faster internet connection. And I know a lot of people probably blink when we say, a couple $1,000s for this solution. But if you can cut down on your people accidentally going somewhere where they shouldn't once a month and cutting down a couple hours of repair time on their computer, that would equal about 24 hours of repair time on your network. And depending on what your service company's charging, that's probably a couple $1,000s. That'll cut down on the cost of the device right there, take care of the cost of the device. Then when you factor in the productivity that you can gain by cutting off the browsing that people shouldn't be doing, and again, it's usually the people that you're not thinking about that are doing the browsing. And the 1 hour a day stat that we do show is real. This is why you see those devices pay for themselves very quickly. So another good hardware appliance that I'll mention is a smart web defense box. So if you're interested in this too, you can always let us know or go out there and search and do some research on it. It has all the features mentioned of the hardware appliances. It also has some stuff where it can actually read the web traffic as it's coming in, and if it's virus or spyware, it can actually stop it based on that too. And it even has something called packet shaping, where you may allow your users to do internet shopping, but you can tell it to slow internet shopping traffic down so it's not using so much of your internet speed. So some neat capabilities that are fairly new out there. So I do want to thank everybody for joining the webinar. Hopefully everybody picked up at least one or two little tips on how to manage spam and users' web browsing. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at bryant.caudill@smartservices.com. You can go to our website, www.smartservices.com, to view these webinars, view the schedule of our future upcoming webinars, and get lots of good information. Again, I hope you'll join us for our next webinar coming up in about a month. So thank you, and everybody have a great day.